Okay, Selloane,
Yeah.
take me back to your first solo exhibition. It Ends With Me. Can you tell me how you got that opportunity to start doing a solo exhibition yakho yokuqala?
Basically, I think it's all about building relationships within the industry, because even though I started practicing again in June 2016, I finished studying in 2009. So and then in terms of build relationships and everything, and the person that was doing the show was quite familiar with my work, because I had sent her a couple of my portfolios, and I know her. So when she creates the platform, she's always wanted to actually work with me, collaborate. And then when she creates the platform, she approached me, she called me, and she's like, would you be open to be our first featured artist for the underline show? And I was like, yeah, let's do it, and then for both of us, we were both taking risks, because it was the first time that she's doing the underline, and it was my first solo exhibition, so we both didn't know how everything was going to be received, but we were comfortable in terms of our work and our concept and everything else. So that's how I was approached to do the solo exhibition.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah. So can you tell me about how you came up with the concept? How was it conceptualized? And then can you speak a little bit more on your process of creating the exhibition?
Okay, how it works is that It Ends With Me. It basically talks about, I cannot talk about my work without talking about my background, right? Because my work is extremely personal. So it talks about, I come from a family of 5 girls. I'm a middle child, and I am Sotho, born and bred in KwaZulu-Natal. My mom is Swati, my dad is Sotho, and I do not know both those cultures. So I was raised very Zulu in KwaZulu-Natal. So with that said, because us we're 5 women or 5 girls in the house, it ends with us technically, because my dad always had this notion, thinking that we are gonna go be married off somewhere and take someone else's surname. So he had that thing in the back of his head that his legacy ends with us, So even though we always tried to please him and in any way, but we always knew that we could never be as good enough as a boy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where I think the naming of the show, It Ends With Me, or even also talking about the spiritual gift that I have as well. We're also passing through. My grandmother has, I don't know how to explain this. We are Tandaza. I don't know how to explain it. Umthandazi. So people used to travel far to come see her abathandazele. She used to heal people through that. And then my mom has premonitions through dreams. So that gift, it was passed on from generation to generation until I was told that it's passed on to me as well. And both of those women, even though they participating in the gift, I wouldn't say they fully embraced it, and I think it starts with this generation now, where I'm saying I do not know where it's going to lead me, but this whole seeing when you're not accepting a gift or accepting a calling as a curse, it's going to end here, it's going to end with me. So everything for me, I think it went full circle with how I was born, and within my family being the middle child, within my grandmother and everything. So I accepted everything, and I just said it ends with me. So my work basically collectively talks about that.
Okay, I find it very interesting that you bring that up, because I'm a consumer of art, and I've come across a lot of artists who actually have a similar calling, excuse me, and it's funny that as the times progress, we are kind of embracing our culture a little bit more. I feel like our parents' generation might have been scared to embrace this culture of looking back and embracing the gifts that we have, and our heritage. What would you say is the impact, or rather the line between the gift that you have and your art? Is it prevalent at all?
I don't think even, I think that's it. I think that is the gift. I think that's the only way I can be able to actually communicate and heal others is through my work. I use my work as that, because obviously right now it's a journey, I'm still yet to learn what's going to happen in the future, but for now, whatever I dream, I put on my work. Whatever I experience, I put on my work. And usually that it heals the next person, you know what I mean? People that I haven't met before, So for me, it's how I'm able to actually function within the dream, within the actual gift itself, So at this point, I don't even know where to even start with it, because it's, I don't know. Another friend of mine always said, Uti, what are you running away from? Like, because I feel like you're going around in circles, and you know exactly what it is, but you're not getting to the dots to where your gift is, And I feel like it's a journey. Allow me to go through the journey. And I feel like most people, especially as you said, our generation right now, they're embracing it, but I also feel like it's easy for you to go ahead on to something that you think it is, because not everybody that has a gift fanele batwase or fanele mathandazi or fanele, you know what I mean? You need to be able to understand the space that you could be engaging with for you to actually go into it, I think, And also, I always hear that people have to be forced into the space, or so they're emotionally vulnerable and they're spiritually vulnerable for them to actually even be in that space, So for me right now, this is the only way that I'm actually able to engage with it. And for now, it's okay with me. I'm happy with it, I'm happy with it at this point. But I can't explain for everybody else, and but I really can't. But I understand what you mean in terms of Baninga Bantu right now, that are embracing it. There's a lot, and I also feel like it's supposed to happen that way, I feel like Africa deserves that, and we deserve, you know what I mean? We deserve to be happy in our own skin. We deserve to be happy with our own spirits as well, So it's a good thing. I really think it's a good thing, But we also need to be very vigilant and very critical in what we're actually getting ourselves into and understanding the spaces before we get into them, So yeah.
Okay. So you spoke a lot about how your journey has kind of brought you to where you are right now in your life.
Yeah.
How did you know? Okay, so you studied at DUT, you studied visual arts. How did you know that, okay, I actually want to try this thing out, or this is my calling, or this is what I should do? How did you get to that point?
Well, what had happened was, it's actually a funny story. What had happened was, I thought I was going to be a graphic designer.
Okay.
Actually, I thought I was going to be a psychologist until my grade 10 guidance teacher told me, no, you're not smart enough. Well, and she didn't know anything about me. She just said, well, maybe try something else, And then at that time, I was like, maybe let me just try graphic design. At that time, and then and art was my life from high school, from primary school actually.
Okay.
I used to be the one that used to be called to draw for other people in primary school. In high school, people used to come whenever I'm painting something from other classes and say, Selloane has this thing, I used to do murals and all those things while I was still in high school, So for me, I think people have known that it's been my calling in terms of painting and drawing and expressing myself through visual art. But then I thought, let me just do graphic design. And the only reason why I went to graphic design because my dad or people used to say, how are you going to be able to make money? Especially at that time, it's like, how are you going to be able to function? You need to have corporate, you need to have stability. And for you to do that, you need to do graphic design. So I did graphic design, I went to a private school. And my dad paid upfront for it. He was happy, And then after I was done after a year, I was like, Dad, I want to do fine art. And he's like, I'm not gonna be part of this.
Okay.
So
did he support you though?
No. He didn't. My mom supported me throughout.
Okay.
So we had to pretend he wasn't there. Everything that we did, for me requesting for student loans and all those things, you know what I mean? So there was no support from my father in terms of my fine art. So it was a calling in a sense because I was in the graphic design field. And even though it was nice and I learned everything, but I was like, this is not... when you're doing something and you feel like I'm not starting it from the beginning. I don't know. I'm not trying to put anything in terms of graphic design, but for me, I felt like I needed to be able to touch the material. I needed to be able to touch the ink. I needed to be able to touch, you know. And then I chose fine art, and from fine art, everything was just, it just felt right.
And then what was your experience in art school? What was that like for you?
The best times of my life.
Really?
The best. Like, I've always been an awkward child. Like, I've never been into sports. I don't even know how to play netball or swimming or any of those kind of things. You know, so even in high school, I used to be part of a photography class for Gwagwa, for extramurals. So I never used to do, you know, so when I got to fine art, I was like, I can spend the whole day just drawing, you know. So there's people like me, you know, so it was literally the best years of my life, because you literally given material to create. The only thing that you need to do is just conceptualize and create, you know. So for me, I had the best time at fine art, even though I got to learn a lot about myself. You know, I got to learn a lot in terms of you as an artist being critical in whatever in your thinking, you know. I got to learn a lot in terms of you, even though it's nice for you to create, but you need to do your research. You need to, you know, you need to be understanding when people are going to be commenting about your work, which is not always bad. It doesn't always comes with bad intentions, you know. So I learned a lot, you know, in terms of the visual arts industry, but in terms of the theory that is the artist, I wish I could have never learned that.
Really? Why is that?
Because it's very Western. At the end of the day,
I
like
see.
whatever that you taught in visual, like I find arty, unfortunately the curriculum, it's very Western. It comes with the Western gaze, you know. Hence they will even separate the arts from African art, you know, and then African arts, the crafts, and then, you know, and then they put it in the lower, you know what I mean? And it comes with a gaze, some sort, you know. So for me, I wish, even though I know it, I wish I never quite learned, because now you have to unlearn it. You know, you have to unlearn it as an artist for you to be able to create and be happy and be comfortable in your own skin. Especially, I am an artist that's creating from my own spiritual background, you know. I had to unlearn that, because they, you know what I mean? It comes from another place, you know. So, visual art, fine art, I learned a lot, but there's certain things I wish I didn't learn.
So I was actually just about to ask you, Uba, if you were in charge of the curriculum at DUT Fine Arts, how would you put the Selloane spin on it? What would you add? What would you subtract? So I know you spoke about...
I will only just teach people the technique.
Okay.
I will only, and also even obviously knowing the theory, you have to know the theory, you know. Or the history per se, you know. But I would think the technique is more important than anything, you know. Self-taught artist, yes, I understand that, but like the one thing that differentiates I'm an artist for you, not everybody's born knowing the composition of an art piece, you know. And that's the one thing that separates artists from anything, you know. Because whether you are self-taught or not, once you're able to understand the composition of your work, whether it's the texture and the lining and the colors and all those things, then you're done, you know, for the rest of your life, you know. So once you learn the technique of those things, then you can break the rules, you know. So I think that should be the one thing that is most important and that has to be pinned onto students, teaching them the technique, teaching them the textures, so they can break the rules later on, you know. So they have an understanding of the techniques, you know. So I think that's the most important thing.
Okay. So Selloane, fresh out of art school, what were your expectations of taking visual arts as a career? And then also, have those expectations been broken down by having actually lived in that?
I remember when I was I think it was my beginning of my third year, and a lecturer was like talking to us about the careers that you can find within fine arts in the background and all those things, and I was like, what? I have to sit in the studio and paint the whole day? That's so boring. You know, and obviously you were 21-year-old, you're like thinking, I'd rather do something else, you know, I need to do directing, I need to do this and this and this. And I'm glad I had that mindset at that time, because I had to experience all those things for me to come back to the one thing that I loved, but I thought that was boring, at that time.
Okay.
So for me, I had big expectations. I thought fine art was the foundation of everything that is art. And that is, for me, I still believe it is. It opens doors in terms of if you want to get into fashion, if you want to go into graphic design, if you want to, because you have the basic understanding of what art is, So for me, I treated fine art that way. So when I finished school, I practiced, I think, for 2 years. And because of political reasons, I had to stop. And emotional reasons as well. It was draining. I was depressed. It was still a lot for a 23-year-old. Like, it was a lot. The industry was a lot. I felt like I couldn't control my own work. I couldn't control my own narrative. And that's the one thing they don't teach you in art school, is how to be able to sustain yourself outside. How to be able to control your own narrative outside, Because I feel like as a black woman artist, especially who is creating like with the paint or whatever, like it's very rare, it's very rare, and especially if you have a point of view. So everybody is gonna jump on it, everybody's gonna jump on it. You are gonna be the cash cow and all that stuff. And when you're younger, you're thinking this is my big break, and you don't know what's between expectation and all that kind of stuff, and reality. So I had to stop for my sanity, and then that's when I went into fashion.
Okay.
Yeah, I went into styling, and at that time it was exciting for me. It was like, okay, let's just get into this. We can still work with textures, still work with visuals, let's still conceptualize. I'm not shooty. And at that time, I started off styling people's wardrobes, going into people's wardrobes in Hillcrest, rearranging their stuff, being invited all the Mr. Price stuff and all that, And at that time, I was thinking it was 2012, 2013. Collaborated with a photographer. We were doing conceptual shoots. We go to site-specific spaces and we create all these things, and it was fun. You know what I mean? I was in my 20s. It was fun. It was like, okay, cool. This is how we can actually have another point of view in terms of art. And then obviously, I had to be honest with myself and see, okay, Selloane, do you want to do this for the rest of your life, or you want to have to change a gear a bit and see where you can actually create something for you that's going to last for the rest of your life, in a sense, and I had to go back to something that was, because art is emotional at the end of the day. For me, it's my breaking point. Anybody can tell you that. It leaves me on my knees crying type of thing, So I had to be honest with myself. I had to be like, okay, let's go back to this, give it all and see what you're going to come out of it, So that was 2016. After a 4-year break, I went back to creating. That's when, at that time, I called Londi, who is a friend of mine, and who was my curator for my first solo exhibition. I phoned her, and I was like, yo, hey, I'm going back to creating this and this and that. She's like, great, you have a concept yet? I'm like, I'll call you back in 4 months, once I sort myself out. So I gave myself like a year, which was the whole of 2016 of experimenting and creating, and going through therapy at that time, because I was like at my lowest of my life, So, and then that's when I developed the concept of using evolve, because my work deals a lot with my dreams. So I had dreamt it for like over a year, and which is weird because around my house there's no red clay anyway, and I have never used red clay in any of my works before, even though I've used ceramics and all those things, like clay for ceramics, but it wasn't red clay, what I mean? It wasn't in this context, So I went and I sourced it. I found it in the river, brought it back. I started like mixing it, feeling the texture, feeling it how it is on my skin, feeling how it is I started using it on paper, board, and then I used it on canvas, and I saw how it worked and how it cracks up, So when you're trying to create a concept, you see how it actually holds some other things, you know what I mean? Those kind of things. So I gave myself a good year, which is 2016, to just develop my concept and seeing how it actually works with my work. And then, I think from then on, it was just upwards. From then on, it was like upwards.
No, I love how you talk about the use of ubomvu in your art, because I want to ask you, how do you encode meaning through the mediums that you use? So through ubomvu and other mediums that you choose to use in your art, are they intentional? Is there meaning behind that? Can you talk us through that a little bit?
They're very much intentional. Like ubomvu, I'm not sure if you guys know ubomvu in our culture. It's usually used for purification. Okay. Whether it's physical purification or spiritual purification, and it's usually used when you are becoming, when a passage in a sense. Right. So when a boy is going to become a man, they usually use it through that passage, like Bakweta, and I'm Sutu, they usually use it as well. And also like those women in that picture there, I'm not sure if you're going to cut to the picture, but we usually use it in our field, and also is Zangoma, Mangtwasa, you usually use it, Yes, so for me, ubomvu, it's a pigmentation, and it's some sort of a mineral that you usually can put on your skin if you want to be cleansed, in a sense, and leaving your past as it is and moving forward, And I felt like it fitted into what I was going through at that time, because I was leaving behind, and also accepting my gift as well, and I felt like it was fitting. So that's why I use it on my skin when I'm performing to cover my whole body, and when I am creating a piece, I usually use it as a face, So when you and it's because it's a paste like marifaga, so you can't control it. So once it dries up, so once it dries up, it opens up and it becomes something that is something else. So for me, I feel like ibomvu is very predominant in my work. It's extremely predominant, and it's calming. Is it? Yeah, it has a life of its own. And I was talking to my therapist, who's also a spiritual healer. She was talking about how when she was growing up as well, ibomvu has a life of its own, that she was told that you could not touch it or create clay from it when you're angry, because it breaks. You know what I mean? Wow. So you can't, like when you're working with red clay or clay itself, you cannot take out your frustrations on it, because it has a life of its own as well, So even now I'm learning all these things through other people, when it comes to red clay. And I know when I'm touching my paintings and when I'm creating, I have to release from that. That's why when I'm doing my performances, I use it on my skin and as a form of me trying to get some closure, because my performance piece, even though I create from pain with my paintings, with my performance pieces, I always try to get some closure through that, because you cannot be angry all the time, because it can, as you can say earlier, it can be toxic, it can be toxic. So for me, it helps me a lot.
So we spoke a little bit behind the scenes about your performance pieces. Can you elaborate for us further what it is that you do in your performances?
Okay, basically what I do, it's usually, I think what is better is for me to actually walk you through like my last performance that I did. Or my two last performances that I did. The one that I did in March, I did it at the case at NSA. It was, we were given a concept to a land that was just we have to think about it, open-ended, and we had to create a piece from that. So I decided to create a performance, because I was like, okay, let me just not do a painting, I need to have an engagement performance, So I created a piece about marginalization of Black women bodies. It could be, when I say women, it could be a queer body, that woman bodies basically, and then I had my sister that's in the room, that me and her did a performance piece through the judging. We basically cut off a space, like a small space, like how women are all, Black women basically, they're always restricted to certain spaces. So this is me talking about marginalization, and now we're talking about how we're going to be able to end. Then I put a bucket where I had ubomvu. She sat on the chair, I cleansed her feet, I asked her to walk around with the spaces where she feels comfortable in. you know, and she was only restricted to the space, you know. So it was, as she's walking through, she's chanting whatever she wants, how she feels. If she wants to sit down, she wants to stop, she wants to cry. But she had to go through it in terms of how she usually feels. Every time she sees a black wall or a door that is closed in front of her, you know, type of thing. You know, so for me, and I only asked women, after the performance was done, the exhibition opened, and then I asked, during the opening, I asked only women to come through and participate. I would wash their feet with red clay, and they get to leave their marks within the space as well. And so we get to see how many women are able to actually waste. And it ended up being a chanting. People end up singing. They were innovating in the gallery. The energy that was there, I've never seen anything like that. You know, I end up actually getting first prize of that award. Yeah, because of, you know, because of that performance. And for me, it was engaging, it was spiritual, and was moving for another person as well, you know. And then, and for me, that one, even though it wasn't emotionally draining for me, I felt like the people that were involved in it ended up being drained, because obviously you have to leave part of yourself within that space, you know. And then the second piece that I did was, I think it was in April, was a performance piece. I did it in the Midlands, Nottingham Road. A friend of mine, we were in the international art residency when they invited international artists and Durban artists to come into this huge farm where we can like we're given, I think, 2 weeks to create and engage, like a workshop type of thing. So and then the first week, a friend of ours who's an artist passed on in the space. And that was like, so that performance, till this day, that's the last time I actually did a performance. Like, it was April this year, because it was draining. I had to close the entire. We had to be asked by the facilitators and everybody, the organizer would say, do you want to continue, or do you want to stay in the space, or, you know? And we all decided, let's honor the space. Let's honor, everything that has happened here. And then I decided to create a piece, and then the piece, we had to actually move from where the accident happened, because it was a car accident. We had to move from where the accident happened, walk from there because he never made it home, walk to the actual farm, you know. And I had to use a bell to summon everyone, because the bell, when it's rung, in the history of a bell, it has to be summoning the whole community. They had to be in a standstill and actually follow the bell sound. So I had literally more than 30 people following me behind me, and I was on my feet, and I poured warmth all over the pathway until we actually got to the farm. And then, and once I was done with the piece, I think everybody was just shattered, because even though it was painful, it was necessary. I felt like it was necessary for me to do it. It was necessary for everyone else that was part of the workshop to actually experience it as well. So it stopped being just a piece. It became very therapeutic for all of us. So and I think after that I cried so badly. I don't think I was able to even function after that, because I cried so badly. Luckily, one of my friends were there to fetch me, so I just went home afterwards, and I haven't done a performance ever since then, because I had to go through. Most of us had to go through therapy who were part of that workshop, because it was a lot. So I feel like my performance pieces, it's something I would never redo them again. You know what I mean? I know some artists, they can, because it depends on your subject matter. For me, because it's very therapeutic and it's very intentional for that time. I make sure that when I do it one time, and I don't create it again. It's very specific to the time and to the mood and to whatever that's happening then. So for me, my performances are very cleansing, in a sense. I think that's when I get to Bodla. That's what I call it. So I call all my performance pieces Bodla, because that's when I get to actually purge all the the unseen thing that's happening inside you. You know, you can just wake up in the morning the next day and feel like, you know what, I actually feel much lighter. You know, I'm glad I did that. You know, so yeah, I think my performance process is quite different to my painting process in a sense. Yeah.
I love how it seemed to has it has so much meaning. Like when you talk about bodla, I can visually see what you're
purging.
what you're talking about.
Yeah, purging.
Okay, so I also wanted to talk about how, as much as you said you're very intentional in your performance pieces, I feel like I see that within your visual pieces as well.
Yeah.
You talk a lot about being a black woman in South Africa, and also about your Sotho heritage. So can I ask you about why is that? Why do you choose to highlight those things?
Because I wasn't exposed to those things. I think that's why. My whole subject matter is me trying to trace my lineage. You know, because I've never been exposed. Like my father never said anything. Like till this day, I don't know anything other than the stuff that I've learned myself and I've researched myself. You know, he always said, "You're gonna get married and take someone's surname. So is there a need?
What's the purpose?
You know what I mean? Is there a need for you to actually know your lineage? Is there a need for you to learn your history? You know, and all those things. So for me, it's a matter of just trying to investigate and trying to seek some sort of comfort, basically within my cultural lineage, my spiritual lineage, the woman in my past as well. You know. So for me, it's very important. I think identity is very important. You know, because it's one thing that as what we were saying before, like all of us right now, I feel like all our generation right now, we're all gravitating towards trying to figure out our own identity, you know. And once you don't know what your identity is, you will not know what your purpose is. You know what I mean? So you have to start there. Yeah. You know. So for me, it's a very important and very sensitive matter, and I'm choosing to share it with the world as well as the processes and the steps that I go about. You know, every time I create a piece. You know. So yeah, I think it's. For me, it's that, basically.
What are some challenges, if any, that you've faced within the art space as being a person who inhabits a black female body like you? Are there any challenges?
Yeah, there's challenges in any industry, I think, you know. It's just that most of us don't talk about them, you know. Yeah. You have to be louder, you know. That's unfortunately the point. And sometimes you have to be louder. It doesn't have to be aggressively loud in your intent in creating, in your intent on writing, in your intent on everything that you do. You know? You have to make sure that everything that you do is intentional and you write it down. You know what I mean? Like you. So for me, I feel like black women artists, even they are questioned more. Yeah. You know. So you need to be ready for those questions. At the end of the day, you need to know your story, basically. So I think those are the problems that we usually have. And obviously there's things like your expectation and all those things. And I honestly, I don't want to get into that because every industry has that, you know. Yeah. And I try very much not to be even part of it anymore, you know, because those are the one things that actually got me to stop even from the beginning, you know. Yeah. So, and I'm so lucky that I have people, you know, in my corner that are rooting for me, that are actually doing all of that for me, and the only thing I have to do is just create, you know. So I'm speaking from a place of privilege right now, that at least I don't have to fight for by myself, you know. At least I don't have to do it, you know. So yeah, those things are there. I don't think they're ever gonna stop, you know. It's just a matter of you being open about it and knowing very well this is what you're gonna expect with any industry, you know. Yeah.
Okay. What work do you do within youth development? Because I know you work for an NGO, or previously used to work for an NGO. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you do within philanthropy?
Okay, what we did, only this year, they okay, last year I won an award that was given by the municipality, which is a visual arts award, and then they
Congrats.
thank you. And then they selected me from them, and then this year they called me to be part of a seminar. The seminar is called Ed Art.
Okay.
By Ed Arts, it's an initiative where they add a visual arts in the rural areas in the curriculum. So the seminar happens once a year. So this NGO, what it does, it works with youth in the rural areas, where there's different pockets. There is sports, there is beauty, there is academics. And then they requested I handle the art direction of the visual arts.
Wow.
So the Ed Arts, basically what it does, they trying to add art basically within the rural areas and curriculum, because in the curriculum in the rural areas you either get science or you get
Geography or
accounting, become accounting. You're not given a choice to actually study visual art or anything like that. So, and which is very much unfair. So kids that are they study in the rural areas, the first time they actually get to learn about art or anything like that is actually in tertiary. And I know a lot of my peers that they've went through that. You know what I mean? So what the initiative does, they take talented youth that are unemployed, that are good with art. They give them, they put them into workshops where they get to actually have certificates in tutorship, when they get to learn, be a qualified tutors. So they get to actually teach ingane how to the art and all those kind of things. So that is the initiative basically that I'm involved with right now.
So talking about learning about the arts, can I ask you, this question is actually for myself personally.
I'm scared.
No, it's not a scary question at all. How does one start their art collection as maybe someone who doesn't have a huge income but is interested in the arts, interested in consuming art, and interested in buying art? Because I think that for a lot of people, a lot of young black people, we're interested in supporting our peers. How can we start to build our collection without maybe having too much in our pockets? What would you maybe suggest for us?
Collaboration. I think that's the only way. Because that's how I was able to actually start my collection. You have to give and take. You're a writer. There are artists out there that cannot write. They can articulate themselves through visual arts, but they cannot write. You can say, you know what, I can offer you the service. You can give me a drawing. That's how you get to actually start. Because a drawing right now can be worth a lot in 10 years, you know what I mean? Sure. So for me, is collaborating through all artistry, A video person can even say, I don't have money, I don't know how to, can we swap? I can document you while you're doing your stuff, and we can put together a portfolio somehow, that you can put through on YouTube or whatever, and you can give me a piece, That's how you're able to actually get to, build up a collection.
I love that. I love that. I'm going to use that thing. All right. And then I also wanted to ask you about the art space in South Africa and in a lot of African countries is predominantly monopolized by white people. No? And it's dominated by that face, as well as a lot of other industries in our country. How did you infiltrate that space? What was that process like for you?
Okay, that's okay. It's hard. It's even hard now. I'm still trying to figure that out. You know what I mean? There's no technique. Honestly, there's no technique whatsoever. But building relationships, and constantly trying, And I would say art is very, very, very subjective. Very, So you not getting something now does not mean that you're not good enough. It just means that at that time that's not what they're looking for. So for me, I say persistence is the only way, and also being in control of your own like your own narrative, knowing very well exactly what your story is gonna help as well. And also and try not to look everything from another perspective, like from a white gaze perspective. You know what I mean? Because like what I was saying before, even though in tertiary they teach you the Western way of learning art, you have to unlearn that, especially when you're a Black African artist. You know what I mean? For you to be able to have your feet firmly on the ground, you really need to unlearn that, because it's not going to help you going forward. You know what I mean? Because you're going to start looking at art in another perspective instead of your own. So I think being firm with your story, that's the only thing, and I'm still doing it right now, so I'm not even an expert about that, but the one thing that I've done previously is being persistent, being distinctive in terms of my style of painting, because that's the one thing that can set you apart from all the other artists.
A running theme.
So having one distinctive quality, so yeah, I think that's the only way. Otherwise, unfortunately, even though whiteness or white people are a minority in this country, predominantly they control the art world. You know what I mean? So the only way that you can do it is through, and sometimes it can be hurtful to us. You know what I mean? And not even hurtful in the sense of you don't like to do it. Hurtful in the sense of why do I have to answer? You know what I mean? Like why? So but also it's a matter of just you knowing exactly what you stand for and not fighting every single fight just because it's there. You know what I mean? So I think the older I got, the more I realized not every fight is there for you, and you need to be distinctive in whatever you create, and it's always going to be like that unless we change it. Unless you guys start buying more art and getting involved in the art world, then then we are within.
All right, and then speaking on this topic of your identity as a Black person, do you feel any sort of pressure of relaying that message as a Black woman in South Africa? Do you feel any kind of pressure having to represent that or staying true to that or letting people know about that type of experience?
Okay, I didn't quite get that question.
So my question is, as a young Black female in South Africa, do you feel any kind of pressure in representing that demographic within your art?
Yeah, definitely. I think anyone who doesn't, I don't know, basically, because, okay, how I see is like what Toni Morrison and Nina Simone always says, like, everything that you're doing, there's always a black girl out there rooting for you. You know what I mean? So no matter, I would try and say everything is about me, I'm creating for myself, at the end of the day, that's the honest truth. There's always going to be a young Black girl out there that you have to fight for. They don't have to go through the same struggle that you're going through. I'm not saying I'm here to change the world, but I'm saying that you can make an impact to someone else's life. So the pressure has to be there, especially because we are a minority within this industry. So I think any female Black or woman Black artist, they will actually think that they don't. They need to actually open up and see. You could see, we are better than Myango, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, things are not, we can't romanticize art and say, we see, oh my gosh, we're just creating from a place, you know what I mean? But we're not as privileged, even though we would like to be, but we're not. We're not where we need to be, and we need to think about all those things at the back of our mind. So the pressure is there, or not constantly, but it's there. I think about it whenever I'm creating as well.
Does that in any kind of way affect the type of art that you produce?
No, because my work talks about the Black woman bodies. you know, so it doesn't at all, you know. So even though I'm telling it from my point of view, it doesn't affect Uguti, oh, I need to think about this person, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like I used to think Uguti, oh, people are not going to be related because my work is too personal. And then I created more, and then I realized Uguti, people take different things from your work, you know what I mean? You know, so you're not always going to be there in a gallery, you know, explaining your work. You know, people are going to take whatever they take out, and they will send you a picture and, you know, put an ad, oh my gosh, your work spoke to me because of this and this, and you might not even be about that, you know what I mean? So it's a responsibility, but it's there at the end of the day. I cannot run away from that, you know, because that's the subject matter I chose to speak about.
Selloane, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. You have been so insightful. Thank you. I want to give you a hug. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Oh, please, can my sister take a picture? Let me call her. Actually, please, can you guys do it?
Sure.
We'll
send it to you.
That was a lot of talking. Did we?
Yeah, just now.
Oh, really?
And I deleted some stuff that I shouldn't have deleted. That's cool.
What stuff?
You know how to recover shit.